gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang. It's Friday in the interminable 25-day to the election limbo that we live in. Welcome to in New Hampshire, no, Massachusetts somewhere, Denis Pombriant.
Yes, and happy birthday, John Lennon.
Michael Markman, we've got Keith Teare, we've got Frank Radice, and we've got Denis Pombriant, and the guy with the fan is Brent Leary. Welcome.
Yeah, at least one of us has a fan.
It's his biggest fan. That's
Never gets old, does it, guys?
Oh, I hate to tell you. It might.
He's a sad, lonely dude that needs to have his fan close to him.
okay. Well, that was great. Well, what else is new?
Doesn't Donald Trump need to have his fans close to him? Isn't that why he's not going to do the virtual town hall? That was a question I asked on Quora that probably got more replies with more varied types of answers than almost anything I've put on Quora in the last month.
How many replies?
That's it. There's no way to, I don't think I've noticed that there's an actual way to check numbers of replies, but it's just, I kept finding myself deleting replies on my inbox because it was just loading it up. And people had the absolute wackiest reasons as to why he didn't want to do it, from because there's a mute button to because he's still got the coronavirus to just all sorts of weird, wacky stuff. I find Quora to be a great place to get a sense of what Trump's people are thinking.
I don't think Trump really wanted to cancel the debate. I think he just wanted to get some free advertising, and I think it blew up on him. I think the Biden campaign took advantage of his first statement and just ran with it, and then it left Trump with his hands open.
But if you think about, go ahead, Brent.
I think he didn't want to do it because if it was virtual, he knew that he was going to be censored. He couldn't get away with the antics that he got away with in person. So he knew it was a lose-lose situation for him.
Yeah, he even said that in one of his interviews. They could cut me off.
Right.
But I think the only thing that could happen in a debate for him is it getting better. It's so bad, it couldn't get worse. So it'd be worth anything to get better.
Have you been here the last 4 years, man?
Yeah, we've been saying that for 4 years, and every time you think it can't get worse, we hit a new low.
I was thinking about the fact that you talk about free advertising, though, Michael. If he, it's clear if he did the debate, he'd have a much larger audience than if he did a town hall on Fox.
Oh, absolutely. But I think at this point, and probably for a long time, he recognized he has zero appeal to anyone outside his committed core base. And he has no ability to attract new voters. Well, he can only repel people who are wavering.
Well, look at the numbers for the vice presidential debate. They were pretty astounding. I mean, they were, I think, what is it, like 50 million plus, making it, I think, the second highest rated vice presidential debate on television, which means that maybe it doesn't mean this, but it implies that the wider crowd got a chance to listen to a more sane version of Donald Trump's talking points coming out of the mouth of Pence and the fly, of course.
Did you see the headline that said "pretty fly for a white guy"?
I thought Pence was performed very well, actually, in terms of just his tone and his balance and his attempt to present the best Trump case in a kind of a intellectually honest way. I thought he was okay, and I thought she beat him.
Intellectually honest.
Honest?
You have
I didn't
got-
get that honest
Yeah,
part.
I'm
Yeah,
not gonna go with that one.
I think
Yeah, me
that's
neither.
called polishing a turd.
Well, honestly,
All of the right wing outlets say he won, but the general polling says he lost.
Right.
I mean, look, if you
The
listen to
biggest- I
him
think
and
the-
not,
I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say, don't listen to his words. If you just listen to the way he said the words he said, he sounded pretty good. But if you actually listen to the words that came out of his mouth, it was a calmer Donald Trump, and they were pretty unhinged. And I also felt, and this is what I'm hearing from the women that I've spoken to about it, that they were incensed with the way he came off. And I guess, Tina, what do you think from way over there in the peanut gallery?
I think he feels creepy, and he feel I if I'm in the same room with him, I want to run.
Oh, he doesn't want to be in the same room with you. I mean, he's married,
I mean,
that's the gift.
he did not respond to any of the questions. He used each question as an opportunity to launch into a set speech that had nothing to do with what he was asked. So if you were listening to his words, you noticed that. And
That's-
also as Frank said, the fact that he kept popping in and interrupting the woman on stage has got to, regardless of what he said or the tone of his voice, has got to have rankled a large part of the audience.
But that's
Any woman who has sat in a business meeting with men has got to recognize that behavior.
That's a 101 of media training, though. You don't answer the question, you say what you want to say. I got trained in that as a CEO.
That's true. That is the basic thing. But usually you throw in one sentence to acknowledge the question before you pivot. He didn't even acknowledge the question.
Yeah, true.
Hence
Actually,
the
I think
polishing the turd idea.
The moderator actually got blowback, and because it was like somebody timed out how much time that Pence got to speak versus Harris, and it was like way more. And they also took what's her name, Susan Page, the task, because she was kind of feeding into letting Pence be Pence and not letting Harris be Harris.
I thought that, and I could be wrong, but I thought that the timing actually came out to being almost even, that each of them had like 36 minutes of content of speaking time, which I found interesting because it seemed to me like Pence interrupted a lot. But I actually had heard that they were very close. I could be wrong.
They were.
No, I heard that too. I read it in one of the papers, but I think the more salient metric is quality speaking time. And if somebody's speaking over you, I don't call that quality speaking time.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say they must have been including in her time all the times that she was being interrupted by Pence.
She did a pretty good job of doing pauses whilst looking at the camera whilst he was doing that. That made him look like
maybe they were including her facial expressions as part of her time. Because she was doing some serious. There was somebody posted this thing about, and it's one of my friends. They had all these pictures of Black women throughout the decades having that same look. It was like George Jefferson's wife, and and they all had the same look that Kamala had when she was getting interrupted. It was pretty effective, the way that they kind of what you could get from that picture.
I was listening to it because for me it was, I think, 2:00 in the morning, and I didn't want to wake my wife up, and so I stuck the phone under my under the covers and just listened. Very different way to experience that debate, because since I just listened, I really paid attention to what Pence had to say. And honest to God, like I said earlier, it felt like word salad. It even though he avoided answering the questions, he said it in such a demanding way that, it's like, wow, he's saying exactly the same stuff that Trump would say, but saying it much more effectively.
Hmm. You know, there was a study of the Kennedy-Nixon debate that, and you probably know more about this than me, where people who listened to the debate on the radio thought Nixon won. People who watched it on TV thought Kennedy won.
Yeah.
No, I
True.
had a friend who was in school in Switzerland during the debates, and he came back astonished that people thought Kennedy won, because all they had at that time was audio. They didn't have a video feed to Europe.
They didn't see the 8 o'clock shadow on Nixon's face with the beads of sweat dripping down, and that look on his face. I mean, that lost him. That pretty much lost it for him, didn't it? Because it was just fractionally him losing the Kennedy, wasn't it? Right. That extra bead of sweat that cost him.
Yeah, you talk about the look on the face. I don't know if any of you have seen the Comey Rule yet, but the guy that plays Trump, the looks on his face, unbelievable. It was so eerie and crazy, and it was about the looks on his face and not so much of him trying to sound like Trump, although he did. I mean, there was this scene where he and Comey were having their private dinner together, and without even listening to the words coming out of his mouth, that is, "I demand loyalty," and so on and so on. And what Comey's reply was, it's the way he ate. It's an image I will not forget. And I just thought that was just a really powerful TV show. If you haven't seen it,
they made some interesting choices. Every time you've seen someone do Trump on TV, they go for comedy. They make him a buffoon and a clown and an idiot. These people decided to make him a monster and a mobster. And so Brendan Gleeson played him straight and played him a little bit unhinged, with no sense of comedy parody. And it even went to some of the choices they made in terms of wardrobe and makeup. They decided to give him a much better fitting suit than Trump has. They decided to make his makeup a little bit less garish than Trump's, because they wanted people to see him as real, not a caricature. And so in all kinds of subtle ways, they reinforce that image that this guy is a monster and a mobster.
So we're saying, we're all agreeing it's a train wreck. Brent, I want to know inside.
No, this is the Gillmor gang, not the Keith gang.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve. Ask Brent that question.
Please continue with what you were talking about. I do not want to.
Yeah. You don't want to get there yet. I was going to say that, what you were just talking about, the images of that character that played Trump. He had so little makeup on that you got a chance to see this guy's he had a lot of wrinkles on his face, which you never see with Trump. And I think it gave a different dimension to the character. And as you say, they did, in an effort to make him seem, I don't know, human. The clothes, the less makeup, the hair still had the same sort of coif going on for it, but you're absolutely right. He was not played in a funny way, in a buffoonish way. He was played very straight. And honestly, my sense of it coming out of it was this was the most accurate portrayal of Donald Trump in a television show that I've ever seen. Now that could play into some of my preconceived notions.
By the current Donald Trump.
Well, but it's not just your preconceived notions. Anyone who's written a book about Trump or the administration will concur with what you perceived. That's who he is.
It was
I
scary.
tend to like the guy on YouTube. You ever see that J.H. Colvin guy or J.L. Colvin guy? Check out his Trump. It's like spot on.
I actually think that Sarah, what's her name? Her Trump sounds perfect.
Sarah. It sounds just
like
the
woman,
Cooper.
Sarah Cooper. Yeah, because As I was saying,
there's
jokingly,
a reason for that.
her Trump sounds perfect. Why would that be?
There's a reason for that, I
He-
think.
He's lip syncing, that's why.
Oh,
Thank you. Yes.
spoiler.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
It's my job. So Keith, you said that everybody was agreeing on something. What was it that we're all agreeing on?
This week so far has been a tipping point that has turned a train wreck into all out, everybody's dead and there's blood on the tracks, to quote Bob Dylan. And the chances of this not being a Biden landslide are very slim in my view. So up until recently, Brent has feared, not wanted, but feared that Trump could still find a way to win. And I'm just wondering if he still is there, or whether this week's tipping point.
Yeah, but where's your sense of dynamics, Keith? Do we want to have the big payoff of the big shift in the middle or at the beginning of the show when we've just barely gotten the technology under control? Or do we want to continue this, thread?
Gerard?
I'm trying to get you to continue the thread by talking
Let's
about
build some
what you think
suspense,
is
man.
going on, not what Brent thinks.
No, I can do that. I think that Trump. I almost believe the conspiracy theory now that he didn't actually have coronavirus. I don't know if I believe it, but the whole thing seems so contrived, everything, that I'm prepared to entertain the idea that he actually didn't have the virus and that going to hospital and the whole thing was a ruse to try to get sympathy. The fact that he was in hospital for only 2 days and he came out and claimed to be not contagious, the whole thing now smells very, very strange. And I've got to believe, unless you're a totally hardcore Trump supporter, which I think is closer to 25% than 33%, you're going to have been shaken by this week.
Well, Keith, one of the things that we have muddying the waters for us is that we've never seen anybody take remdesivir, monoclonal antibody, and I don't know, whatever the third thing was, dexamethasone, all at once early in the course. In my view, the antibody alone could account for his speedy recovery. The dexamethasone could easily be letting the dogs out on his weird personality. And remdesivir is sort of icing on the cake. I think it's entirely possible that he got better really quickly because of those drugs. Those are I don't know those drugs intimately, but I know that the way they work is exactly what you have to do to go after that virus. And just a lot of people haven't had that opportunity. So I think that's real.
I think he's the only one in the world who has had that 3-dose cocktail.
Right. And will probably be the only one in the world that will continue to get something like that. My question, though, Dennis, is as somebody who understands the sort of the methodology behind trying to treat a virus, I know people that had hepatitis C that had to go through a really long and arduous journey to get to the end of losing the virus. It wasn't a matter of and taking some very powerful, almost clinically the kinds of drugs that you might get if you were treating cancer. Very strong stuff, and it never happened quickly. As a matter of fact, up until recently, when they just developed a hepatitis C drug that works in less than a few weeks, it took 5, 6, 7 months for that treatment to actually work. And viruses, as you know, are certainly much more difficult to treat. And that makes me wonder, he hasn't yet said that he's been negative. There has been no, since he announced it. That's the thing that Keith, that's the thing that makes me sort of twist away from. I was one of those people who didn't believe he had it in the beginning as well. Then I sort of did a twist and said, well, I think he probably does. And I mean, remember that shot of him, the Mussolini shot where he was standing on the balcony, he was having a hard time breathing. There were definitely symptoms. Even yesterday when he did the interview with Hannity, he had to stop at least twice to cough. So my question is, I believe that he had it, is still contagious. And any idea that he might go out and be in public until someone has said that he has tested negative is completely irresponsible.
Totally agree. I don't know a lot about Hep C, but I can tell you that the methodology for going after a virus is to disrupt its either its protein making for its viral coat, or to disrupt its DNA, its genetic transcription when it gets into the cell, or to disrupt making the new copies of the genetic material that will go into the capsule when the cell bursts. It's quite possible that some of the early hepatitis drugs didn't get to each of those places and may have not been as effective for another reason, which is that I don't know about the viral replication cycle. You can only attack a bacterium or a virus especially well when they're replicating. So, for example, in an analogous situation, tuberculosis is a tough microbe to deal with because it only replicates once a day. It's got a 24-hour replication cycle. So you can bombard it with drugs that interrupt its protein synthesis or its genetic transcription. But it's a much slower thing than, say, going after, say, a strep microbe that might replicate every 20 minutes to an hour.
The other thing that got my mind sort of twisted up was the fact that one of the drugs, which was created from stem cells from fetuses, had to be created from fetuses that had been harvested before the Trump ban on stem cell research on fetuses was put into effect. And then later, after the is it dexamethasone, the steroid drugs started to scramble his brain, he basically said, anyone that needs this drug, kind of like what he said at the FDA, anyone that needs this can get it. Well, that can't happen because there aren't enough legal fetuses that have been harvested prior to his own ban out there. So that
maybe there's something else at work here, and that is that stem cell lines are immortal. So once you've harvested it and you've made a cell line, and this one I think has a name of something like T293 or 293T, that's available in the lab, and you can buy it from biological supply houses. So
it's clonable.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you ever need more fetal tissue, at least for that cell line.
Well, then, never mind.
Well, no, but what it means is the genie's out of the bottle, and the far right needs to think about something else, because because now you've got a situation where you'd actually have to withhold a therapeutic from a sick person, and what's the moral duty in that case?
Well, the other thing is this was a therapeutic regimen that he was going through that he claims was a cure.
Right. Yes. PhD where at Wharton?
The antibodies could be a cure. Yeah,
they could be.
Theoretically, it doesn't mean they were, but theoretically there can be.
But is it not true that that most of those drugs are still not FDA approved?
That's correct. They're compassionate use or EUA, emergency use authorization.
So I guess it wasn't the compassionate part there then.
Compassion is in the eye of the beholder.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm enjoying watching Brent. He's saying nothing, but like Kamala Harris, his expressions are priceless.
Yeah. Next time, Brent, turn right around, look into the camera, and give us that. Yeah. There you go.
There you go. But then you need this smile. I think she's just got the most buoyant smile.
Yeah, I can't replicate that one, Michael. Sorry, I can't.
Well, she could smile even when she was being angry, which, by the way, is something that only a woman can do, I think.
That's a certain skill set that I know I don't have. So
My feminine side lets me do that. I can do that.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Michael talked about inflection points, and I agree. We're sort of at an inflection point, but it raises the question: in light of the attempt to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, are we at another inflection point, and are we tipping over into violence?
I'm glad you brought that one up because that was going through my head when Steve said, "Where's the suspense?" The suspense is really the reaction to Trump's losing, and and I don't think we know. I mean, that's the point of suspense that keeps me up at night now.
A kidnapping is the most scary thing. Is a large movement of people with guns that are prepared to be on the streets. And that
are you talking about caravans?
a caravan, a caravan
From Central America, yeah.
Well, this just crossed the Washington Post website. Former special forces sought by business group to guard polling sites in Minnesota, company says.
Former special forces?
Yes.
So is that a nice way of saying people who are no longer in the military and are now in militias?
Or freelancing. I mean, I'll read you the lead paragraph. A private security company is recruiting a, quote, large contingent, unquote, of former U.S. military special operations personnel to guard polling sites in Minnesota on Election Day as part of an effort to, quote, make sure that the Antifas don't try to destroy the election sites, according to the chairman of the company.
You got to watch out for that organization, the Antifas. Better watch out for them.
Yeah, Google them, see if you can find them.
Right next to the Proud Boys.
Well,
I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them.
Proud Boys are an organization. Antifa is not.
Just kidding.
I think that's what isn't that what Biden said on the first debate? And
That's correct.
just got overwashed with idiocy. So
The first and only debate.
yeah, that's right. The presidential, yeah, exactly.
So the thing that
I think we'll have a third one.
The thing that I think is hopeful, I just don't have any idea. The thing that I think is hopeful is that the media is actually doing their job finally. If you look at the Washington Post, it's just been extraordinary in terms of, actually I've been looking at it on Feedly, which I'm just looking at the headlines, and there's a significant amount of commentary that is right-leaning on the Washington Post, which I find really interesting because they're essentially giving credibility to all of their material because they're letting the voices from multiple sides, run free.
You mean doing what journalism is supposed to do?
Yeah, I think that it's a jump ball as far as what journalism is supposed to do at this point. But just from a practical perspective, they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk about journalism. But the New York Times, there was an article today that I was just cramming. It was in the Telegram feed, which is this narrative. It's by Peter Baker and Maggie Haberman. What's going on in terms of the craziness that's in the White House? If you take Trump out of the picture in terms of what he says or doesn't say, and just look at what everybody else in the White House is saying, it sounds like a mad dash for the exit. And this article goes on for like 10,000 words or something. I mean, it's like you keep paging up. There's just so much going on right now that it's almost like a court stenographer trying to keep up with it.
Did you see the Steve Schmidt response to Trump's tweet? It was amazing. That made all the points that you just made, Steve. I have a couple of things that I'm thinking about, and I don't know if anyone on the call on the show gets a chance to read the newspapers that these journalistic outlets are also putting online. My sense is that you're not going to get that in the newspaper, but you will get it online. I don't know for sure. It just feels that way to me. And I find the other thing is, I mean, it has a lot to do with what the people in the administration are not doing. So imagine, for example, Trump getting to the point where he's now saying to William Barr, why haven't you arrested Hillary and Obama and Biden? Why haven't you arrested anybody? Go out and arrest somebody. Make these arrests before the election. And what you're getting basically is crickets. So it's got a lot to do, it seems to me, not just with what the others guys are saying, taking Trump out of the formula, but what they're not saying.
I agree. On that line, Barr has been threatening to release this Durham report that's going to show that Trump was spied on and that the whole Crossfire Hurricane investigation was improperly predicated. And he just announced he will not get that out before Election Day. So that's got to have stung.
The other thing too that was kind of interesting was Moscow Mitch, isn't that what they call Moscow Mitch McConnell? Where they were asking him about I guess the White House's approach to coronavirus. He said, "Look, I haven't been to the White House since August because I just do not agree with the way that they're handling." When was the last time you heard Mitch go against, the Don? I mean, that was kind of interesting the way it was smooth too. It was very underhanded and sneakily, stealthily out there, but it was there.
He wants to ensure a win.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that Mitch McConnell is if it's not really super smart about his ability to garner votes. He and Nancy Pelosi are the two reigning experts at this. And, basically, I think we've talked about this, Dennis, you and I, point where McConnell feels that the Senate majority is in jeopardy. And that becomes much more important than propping up Trump.
Important to him.
So
but propping up Trump is, because propping up Trump is going to take those Senate seats that are right on the edge. I don't think it's going to help them. And that's the reason that he would do that. I wonder though, what's going on in South Carolina, which I find to be a really interesting thing.
I mean, there are a couple of states that were impossible for Democrats to win that are now in the bubble. They could flip.
What were you saying, Steve? Were you going to go say Lindsey Graham can't lose?
I mean, I agree with what Michael says, but I also in the final analysis, I think that South Carolina will not flip, and neither will Texas, and probably neither will North Carolina. But if everybody else stays on the trend line, Biden's going to have something like 330 or 40 electoral votes. And as they said somewhere, on January 20th, somebody will walk into the Oval Office and pick Trump up and carry him out.
I wouldn't want to be one of them.
Oh, I don't know.
Now that will have to be an
I'll bet people are lining up for that job.
No, I was thinking it's going to need to be like one of those front loaders.
Oh, yes. Well, it's not going to, yeah, it won't be.
Sorry, I'm just
Body
joking.
shaming.
I kid.
I recall
Yeah.
a
Remember October of 2020 when we could still kid?
Oh. At this point in 2016.
Sorry, Dennis, I interrupted, Dennis.
I was just going to say I saw a bit
Go
of,
ahead, Dan.
I saw a bit of sarcasm not too long ago in which claimed that Jeff Bezos had volunteered to remove Trump and ship him anywhere in the country.
With a drone.
You need more than a drone to ship that guy.
Half a dozen. But at this point in 2016, if I'm not wrong, and correct me because I know you all will, wasn't Hillary 8 or 9 points ahead?
Yeah,
This was before the Comey letter came out about the reinvestigation. She was pretty much ahead by 8 or 9 points in the national numbers.
But there are two things to keep in mind. One, Biden's lead has been consistent and solid throughout the entire campaign, where Hillary was up and down and up and down and up and down. And the second point is Hillary never got above 48%, and Biden is over 50. So that, the votes are just not available to Trump.
And the other thing too about the lead was that came after the grab him where you said he would grab him moment with Billy Bush and
Right. Yes.
There was that. There hasn't been anything like that I guess everything has been like that.
Yeah, and that didn't matter. Remember?
It was a little, it caused a little stir. Remember, he actually came out and pseudo apologized for that. Didn't really apologize, but
yeah,
went
cost
through
Billy
emotion.
Bush's job is what it did.
Yeah, I think he might just got to get in the job back recently. But
he did. I'm actually honestly, I'm glad he did.
Yeah, he was like a kid in that whole thing, but
Well, no, but honestly, he's not a journalist. He's an entertainment reporter, and part of what those guys do, because I know this, is to cajole the people that you're interviewing to get them to say things that they might not normally say. And I felt all along that what Billy was doing there was just pushing him and having this locker conversation with him. I don't think Billy expected that as an answer, but I do think that that's part of that tactic of the way an entertainment reporter goes about talking to. That's not every entertainment reporter, by the way. To me, it's the ones who have the most experience. The younger entertainment reporters will try and be straight and go down the middle and all of that. But Billy was playing with him.
Frank,
The calibration is different, but political reporters do the same thing.
Frank, give us an example of.
I mean, if you listen to Woodward on his tapes, he doesn't really want to challenge Trump. He wants to encourage him to say more.
There you go.
And I think that's a criticism that a lot of people naively throw at reporters. Well, why aren't you challenging them? Why aren't you interrupting them? Why aren't you pointing out that they're lying? That may not be as effective as letting them dig themselves into deeper holes.
Frank, give us an example.
Interestingly,
where that happened.
Kids, everybody else keep talking because I know what Keith's going to ask and I probably don't have an answer. So keep going, guys.
Is my microphone messed up?
Oh,
We could hear you.
Hmm.
I can still hear you.
Oh, so I was
No,
saying,
we can all hear you.
I was asking Frank if he
I
had
can hear what you're thinking.
from his personal experience, does he have examples of having done that? And give us a couple.
Oh gosh, that's you putting me on the spot. So I interviewed a pretty well-known rock star who had a drug problem that people had talked about, but he hadn't talked about. And I interviewed him in my typical jovial, sarcastic style, which got him to open up and talk about his drug problem in public. I don't think that I would have gotten him to talk about it had I said to him, "So you've got a drug problem. Let's talk about that." It wasn't that way, and so that's an example of someone whom I don't want to mention because I've actually gotten the exact same response from at least a half a dozen musicians that I've interviewed about their involvement with drugs and with hard partying and with sex and drugs and rock and roll and all of that. It's pretty typical. And I agree with you, Michael, that is the way that political reporters in long interviews tend to get better answers from their victims than they would if they were doing a press conference, which is quick sound bites, quick answers, go straight for the jugular. You don't need to do that in an interview where you're sitting down with somebody across from somebody.
Give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves.
There you go. Look, don't we think that's what's been happening? I think it's pretty clear that that's what's been happening with Donald Trump.
I mean, I think Biden is kept out of it, despite the fact that he's been running for president, just to give Trump ample room and ample rope, and it's worked.
And it's not like he's giving him he's snatching the rope. He's like doing everything he can to keep everything, all eyes on him. It's just that it's
his rope.
Apparently
it's
not
the
working.
best rope.
But
it's never been roped like it.
Many people say
it's the best rope. It's the best rope.
People tell me all the time.
It's a human.
Yeah. They come up to me and they say, "Sir, tell me about that rope."
It's strong rope. It's always strong.
I always wonder where the Secret Service is when all these people come up to Trump and say things.
It's a human trade.
They're hiding.
Of an A-type.
They're in the hospital right now is where they are.
The head of security is hospitalized.
Didn't Kayleigh McEnany test positive today or yesterday?
A few days ago.
It was a couple days ago.
I was going to say, Frank, it's a human trait of an A-type personality that the things that other people see in you as your failings, you believe are your strengths. So if you allow an A-type personality to talk, they will always reveal everything that they believe is their strengths. And Trump's belief is that his strength is that he's anti-establishment and unconventional and questions authority and questions logic, including science. And he thinks that's a strength. So he will take any rope you give him. Elon Musk is very similar, but not a bad guy. You know, he's a good guy, but he has all the same failings, and we like him because he's trying to change the world in good ways. But he's as flawed in that he doesn't fully know whether you can really do it. He's just committed to trying. So I think it's a personality trait of pretty much every A-type personality.
Well, but we know that his base eats that up. And so no matter what he says, and this kind of swings me over to why I was on the fence with Denis a few weeks ago. With Brent a few weeks ago, in that I'm still worried. not as worried as I was, but I'm still a little worried that that because of this wonderful thing we call the Electoral College, that he could pull it out, and that's niggling me in the back. And I had a conversation today with a guy who works for BBC Five radio. He was doing it out of New York. He's just moved back to the UK. And we were having this conversation because on his blog or his podcast, it's all he's talking about now is American politics, regardless of where he's doing it from. And we both came to the agreement in the end that, oh, geez, it could happen. He could pull it out. I'm less likely to believe that that's going to happen now than I was 4 or 5 weeks ago when Brent and I were almost on the same page.
There still are some paths, but the election is not what I'm worried about.
I think you still
It's the
both are.
post-election.
I think you still both are on the same page. Brent, you've got about 30 seconds. Any change in your perspective?
A lot is going on, and it's been all bad. But I'm not there yet, folks. I'm still, there's still like Frank was saying, he could pull that straight flush again like he did last year, and somehow he could be outvoted by like 5 million votes, and he could still do it. I haven't changed yet. Sorry, I'm still
Brent,
holding out.
When you talk to people in your circle, and you espouse this position, what is the response that you're getting from them other than from us?
No, they get it because of what happened 4 years ago. Nobody ever thought this guy was going to win, right up to like the last day, and he won. So that's why I am still there. Well, actually, I'm not still there because I'm leaving now. So I will see you guys.
I
I'll
thought
see you guys next week.
Thanks, Brent. See you
Thanks,
next
Brent.
time.
Thank you.
Hey, buddy.
Chow mein.
This all reminds me of something from the Civil War. It's really about how you prepare for adversity. There was a story about planning a battle. I don't remember which one it was, in Ulysses Grant's headquarters, and he had a kind of a defeatist staff who kept saying, "Oh, Bobby Lee's going to do this or Bobby Lee's going to do that," and Grant had to come in and say, "Look, cut it out. Tell me what we're going to do, because we can only control what we can do. Stop shitting your pants about Bobby Lee." And I would say, stop worrying so much about Trump. I'd be more worried about guys with AK-15s or AR-15s in Michigan right now than anything Trump can do electorally.
I don't want to.
Video clip
I don't want
to with an elected sheriff opining that those militia folks had an absolute legal right to arrest the governor. So,
is this a Michigan sheriff?
yes.
Did you see the? I don't want to be, although I could be guilty of profiling. Did anybody see the photograph of those guys? I saw a picture today where they had the lineups of their mugshots, and I have to tell you, personally, I was scared of the picture.
Really?
Yeah, it's online somewhere. You can find it, but it is. I feel like I don't want to say this, but boy, I looked at that picture and I went, yeah, I get it. I see it. You should go look for it right now, Dennis, and then share it.
there is a look. They all have the same look. They all have the same facial hair, the same expressions. Of course, most people have the same expression in their mugshot.
Well, you know what?
I don't know. I smiled.
I'm looking at it right now. I will share it with you. It strikes me that everybody tries to look tough in their mugshots. Here,
I smiled. I was like,
Yeah, I just sent it to you. I'm looking at these guys and I'm wondering what they looked like after the camera did its work.
I guarantee you they look the same.
I think this is
I mean,
this is the one good reason why Trump is so noisy, is that he takes the focus away from these people. What we're doing right now is supporting those people just by
talking about it.
Talking about it, and it's a reasonable thing to do, to be horrified and frightened by this, but at least there are so many signals coming from Trump that he obliterates most of the specific danger.
Oh, that's his MO, isn't it?
But many of his signals are signals to those people, encouraging them. So he's not
I'm
actually distracting from them.
minimizing. I'm not minimizing it. I'm just saying that the amount of press. I mean, yesterday, the amount of press coverage of the Michigan situation was about 50%. The other 50% was basically the meltdown in the White House. So I thought that was a good balance in terms of the way the media was covering the story. But the net effect is that there's 24 days until the election.
Yep. Every day Trump fails to advance is a good day for the rest of us.
And there's a lot of people who've already.
And look, the fact that he refuses to do this second debate is a good thing for Biden.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm suffering from a probably 5-second delay here, which is why I haven't been able to control Keith's. You notice that when we were talking about manipulating the audience or the interviewee, Keith got this big broad smile on his face. You can go back.
That was good.
Tape. Yeah, no, it was excellent. You're speaking to the chief manipulator there, but in any case, I'd like to try, given the limitations of this. We'll fix it. Wi-Fi, goodbye. We'll fix it for the next show. But I'd like to try and tease out just a little bit of an emotional sounding board from you guys as we wind this up. Where are we? Not about the horse race, just about our ability to be able to put our happy shoes on and tap dance.
I'm not in a good place because I feel good that Biden's going to win, and I feel good that he chose Kamala Harris, and I feel good that the next 4 years will be a lot more or a lot less crazy. I was really, really put out of joint this week when the House Democrats produced a report on antitrust. And it made me realize that the regime we're going into is going to have a lot of problems as well. So my enthusiasm for it was definitely diminished by that. The understanding of technology and progress as the roots of social equality and social justice and equal opportunity is non-existent in my view. So that relationship between technology, progress, and social justice, I'm a strong believer in that trinity, and they don't seem to be. So what do they believe in?
I agree with you there. And that goes into my overall sense of anger. I'm angry about what's going on. I'm angry about where Trump is with his talking about this cure. I'm angry about him invoking God. But I'm equally as angered by what happened with the Democrats in tech. I thought, that's a story that we could do an entire show on if there wasn't such a heated political conversation to be had every day. That whole issue of these great companies and the antitrust issue, it just angered me. And so I'm going into this 24 days from now, feeling as though it's probably going to be a Biden win, but I'm angered on both sides of the coin. And that's where I am.
Dennis?
Well, I have been out of sorts since 2016. Trump has, maybe I have this happy demeanor. I'm optimistic about Biden, but really Trump has been a very difficult pill to swallow. I will tell you, frankly, I have nightmares. I won't tell you about what, but they emanate from this campaign. Maybe I read too many newspapers. I don't know. As far as the antitrust thing is concerned, I'm on the opposite side of the fence. I think there's some modicum of regulation that needs to happen in the tech industry. Just flat out needs to happen. Just as we needed to regulate the railroads, we needed to regulate electrical generation. I've been researching and writing about this for a long time. It can be done well without skinning anybody alive. But I think the new tech industries have advanced to the point where they are ubiquitous. They need to be ubiquitous. Every one of us needs to be able to access them, and there's some ground rules that go with that, and it's overdue.
Michael?
I live in a state of anxiety and sleeplessness and concern. I'm a little bit addicted to these stories, and I wish I weren't. On the antitrust issue, I tend to be on Denis's side. There are certainly the founding ideology of the tech giants has to do with social equality and justice, and for the most part, they come out on the right side. But there are also a lot of deleterious effects that we need to pay attention to. All of the what is it called? The sharing economy, the gig economy that's enabled by software is really exploitative. The ability of bad actors to use so-called neutral social platforms to recruit and propagate bad actions is something we need to pay some attention to. We're in a new world that doesn't quite have the same laws that the pre-tech and pre-networked world had, and we have to face them.
Well said.
Yeah.
So I come down more on the side of Denis and Michael, only because I think that the antitrust experiments with Microsoft previously kind of proved that that the political energy is largely toothless. Microsoft successfully defended themselves against the worst of the split up kind of psychology, and I think that that will also happen here. I think that what the Democrats are doing right now is they're basically putting their best case forward as their initial talking point. And I think that, they see this as a negotiation and I think they're probably right. I think Dennis's points about the need for regulation. I've always recoiled from that simply because I love the impact of these social networks and the real-time notification-based environment that we are now firmly in. But I recognize that he's right and we're right to have to figure out how to be able to reduce the negative aspects of it.
So
and
if
we're obviously living in one of the. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was going to say, so the Democrats then, based on what you're saying, is that they're going to offer up an opportunity for there to be a giant explosion and then negotiate it down to a tweak.
Well, we'll see.
I'm not sure what that
I think the topic of antitrust, especially with regard to tech companies, is worth a whole show.
Yeah, that's why I'm hesitating to say anything. I mean, the short version of my opinion is that the accusations against these companies is as valid as QAnon, that it's a conspiracy theory that has no base in reality. And these companies would, I agree with you, Steve, were it to come to court, pretty successfully defend themselves because there is little or no substance to the accusations. So I could go with what you said.
But if that's true, then we're talking about, the rule of law. And, what part of democracy is not about the effective rule of law, not the verbiage that surrounds it, but the actual results.
I'm actually okay with that. I believe in the rule of law, and I believe that you can trust the judiciary most of the time. And so I'd be happy to take those companies' side of a legal debate and expect them to win.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go that way. I think what we're looking at is statutory law. I think what we're looking at is legislation. Let me give you a practical example. Virtually every service that you take for granted that you buy out in the marketplace is regulated. If you want to hire a plumber, that plumber has to be licensed. That plumber has to pull a permit in order to do something at your house. Now, if you want to go and change the toilet in your house, you don't need a permit. You can do it and good luck and maybe it'll work and God help you. That's true. That's true with electricity. It's true with haircuts, with nail salons. It's true with medicine and law. The state, each state has a licensing board in medicine. That's as far as it gets. You go to medical school, you pass your boards, you get a license. It has nothing to do with whether or not you can be a brain surgeon. All of that is handled by the professional societies. A brain surgeon is board certified in his profession or her profession. A thoracic surgeon the same way. What I would propose to you is that kind of mechanism can be applied to the tech world so that you do not end up having a company like Facebook oopsidentally giving 100 million names and personal data to Cambridge Analytica.
Which, by the way, this week it was revealed were incompetent to do anything useful with those names. It was the British Parliament produced a report on Cambridge Analytica's success and concluded it was zero.
Well, that's really interesting, but it's outside of this discussion.
But I agree with you.
I would.
Let me just say one thing that Dennis, I'm a believer in regulation. I am for all kinds of things, but you must admit there's a difference between an antitrust accusation, but for it to be valid, the following must be true. These companies must be monopolies and they must be abusing their monopoly power. There's a difference between regulation and antitrust.
You're absolutely right. And I would regard what came out of Congress this week as an opening salvo.
I mean, there's
Blow it up in the
there's
beginning.
one dimension of antitrust which has to do with the ability of companies to compete against each other, which is essentially this rich guy against that rich guy, or this new innovator against that old entrenched innovator. But then there's another dimension which has to do with the power of companies versus their workers, the power of customers versus the companies, and that's an area that maybe doesn't fall quite under antitrust, but it's part of this picture. It's part of the damage that large tech companies can do to society.
Well, so I've personally been involved in the last couple of months in 2 acqui-hires by one of these companies on the list. And an acqui-hire is characteristic of market power. Basically, what happens is a good company with good techies doing good stuff gets offered to be bought well before it has a product by the big guys. And typically the price is sufficient that, you're talking about 15 engineers and maybe 30 or 40 million dollars to change hands if they'll agree to join Big Co. And that practice is new, and it's symptomatic of there being 4 or 5 or 6 huge companies in the Valley that have a lot of market power. And it drains innovation because the best engineers don't pursue their dreams. They exit early because the money's enough to do that. So I'm not neutral. I'm just not in favor of antitrust. I don't think these people are monopolies. So I do think there's a lot wrong that needs to change, and I have different views about how to change it.
Right.
I think we're going to have this conversation in 25 days.
From your lips to God's ears.
I want to leave. I want to leave with 2 thoughts. First of all, I would love to be a company that got bought that didn't have a product. That would be great. And second of all, Dennis, I think you'll understand this. A farmer is someone who is outstanding in his field. A sharecropper is someone who is outstanding in somebody else's field. Wait a minute. Michael's just looking. What does that mean? I have no idea what it means, but it's funny.
I got the second one. That was fun. The first one, I still don't know what it meant. So my expression holds over from the first comment. What was the?
No, it's something Keith said. It's something that Keith said. I was just following up on that.
Yeah, but I didn't understand it when he said it.
When he said it? Oh, I understood it completely. I have a friend of mine who I have a friend of mine who sold their company that he didn't have a product for, and he made a whole bunch of money and walked away and bought a boat. I'm still going, well, what the hell was your product? He goes, it was a great idea. It kind of felt like Donald Trump's great idea for healthcare.
No, but
yes, but I mean, all innovation is organized by someone pitching something that doesn't exist to someone else and collecting money for it before it exists.
Sounds like television. Sounds like the movie business.
And some of those pitches are frauds, and some of those pitches encapsulate a really smart idea and perhaps even some technical innovation to bring that idea to the world. But the pattern is the same, whether you're Trump selling Trump steaks or whether you're Steve Jobs selling the Apple II, you're still doing the same thing. It's just that one is empty and the other has content.
Oh yeah, but
I had an Apple II, by the way.
No, but also, Frank, the very nature of an acqui-hire is they don't care about your product. They care about your engineers.
So how do they know? How do they know how good your engineers are?
They interview them rigorously.
Yeah, but all right, I get that, but what turns them on to the fact that there might be a 15 good engineers sitting over here? How do they find
your
that out?
pitch?
Well,
your pitch is what gets right. It's your
well,
pitch.
It's not the pitch. It's if I go into too much detail, I'll give away too much that I can't. But
Okay,
basically,
Don't.
if the company is working in a space that the acquirer is also working in. They look at what that company has done technology-wise, not product-wise. The product could be shit, but the technology could be good. And they identify overachievers in a technical sense. And then they go and offer to get into talks to acquire. And their primary process is an interview process with all the engineers. And when they finally do buy the company, if they buy it, they actually don't buy the company at all. They give the company money to release the engineers.
Is it likely that they'll already know these engineers in advance? And
Yeah, they would have probably met in various standards bodies and things like that. So that it's a small world, as you know. Silicon Valley engineers and Chinese engineers meet all the time in world bodies like the W3C and the IETF and various other standards bodies, Wi-Fi, you know, you name it.
Oh, there are hundreds.
Hundreds of standards bodies, and they all know each other, and they know how good they are.
If you look at the outcome of many of these acquisitions, and you know, acquire maybe, often the dynamic here is that the company to be acquired is identified as somebody that's going to disrupt some aspect of the acquirer's business model.
Right.
And as
so
a
they
result,
want to buy it to keep something from happening?
Sometimes that happens. Yeah.
so if you look at
Sometimes
the
it's
end
preemptive.
result,
That
if you look at the end result of many of these acquisitions, it's often just to kill the product.
that's
So there is a product.
That's sometimes true, Steve. I think that is a subset of these cases. They tend to pay a lot more when that's true, and it tends not to be an acqui-hire. Recently, Facebook acquired Giphy. I don't know if they've closed that acquisition yet because it was subject to antitrust, but they're looking to acquire Giphy. Giphy is several hundred employees. They definitely would not have gone and interviewed every employee. And Giphy is just a feature, right? It's just a feature. It's a GIF that people share. So, and they paid a lot for it because they didn't want anyone else to have the feature. But when you look at how much money Giphy had raised, they didn't pay a lot for it because they roughly paid a little bit more than what it had raised as venture capital. So even then, you could divide these acquisitions into buckets. Bucket A is like WhatsApp and Instagram, highly strategic, changes the game. The chessboard changes in the company's favor by doing it, and almost no price is too high for that. And then there's the ones you mentioned where it's threatening or disruptive. It shocks me, by the way, that Facebook didn't bid for TikTok. The only reason they wouldn't have done is antitrust fears. They should have bid for it. If I was at Facebook in Corp Dev, I would have insisted to make a bid because it absolutely is core to their future that TikTok is not out there or is owned by them.
Didn't they try to duplicate TikTok? It felt to me like that the timing of that was, hey, this is going to go down the tubes. Let's have something ready in case it does.
Too late, too little, too late. The only way to acquire, the only way to be in the TikTok game is if you're on TikTok now.
Yeah.
Have you seen how many people, raise your hand, are on TikTok?
As a viewer, I haven't posted.
Yeah, I'm not surprised Dennis isn't.
No,
But Dennis, I got to tell you, no, but there's a thing on TikTok, Dennis, that you would absolutely love. It's called the cats and kittens of TikTok. I'm telling you, man, it's hilarious. That's all I got this.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Maybe when I retire.
Well, here's to not retiring.
No.
I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor, for her incredible calm in the face of total disaster at the beginning of the show.
And
Well, she's well represented by a still photo.
And
Yeah.
more. What?
just go ahead.
Thank you
have
for
to-
more, or
No.
it's still a total disaster?
We'll talk about it.
Nor the woman behind the curtain.
It was fun. It was
Ozette.
fun. Yeah.
Azette.
And I want to thank Denis Pombriant. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Frank Radice.
Thanks a lot. It's always a blast. And Dennis, I loved your cat in the beginning, man. You should get him on some more.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I have several.
Get him on
Yeah.
TikTok.
Michael Markman.
Hello and goodbye. I must be going.
Keith Teare.
Thank you. I was a little distracted this week, so if I seemed so, I actually was. Things were going on during the show that I had to deal with.
Well, me too. My inner rage was going on. And I want to thank Brent Leary for his yeoman-like work. Those of you in the enterprise space should take a look at the show that he did with the top 5, at least by revenue, CRM vendors, and also in the aftermath, Denis Pombriant was one of the analysts. So it was a great show, and is a harbinger, I think, of how we can make this kind of live experience really be not only instructive, but actually make changes in the direction of our future. CRM Players is the name. It's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook, and it's probably on Periscope, Twitter Periscope.
Players with a Z.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is Periscope still a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's acquired by Twitter, and it's Twitter's Facebook Live.
Yep. That's
So
And by the way-
are we broadcasting or Twitter casting on Periscope at the same time we're doing Facebook Live?
Some version of this that I'm going to find out about as soon as we get off. Yes, correct. All right. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.